Hello everyone, welcome to CSS Learning, and congratulations if you have followed along and then completed the HTML learning. So it took us like 2-3 months, and then it's a long journey, but we have made it, and really big congratulations. And then now from this tutorial and from now on, I'm gonna continue the CSS learning. So welcome guys. So that will be more interesting because it's more related to our graphic design and making a layout, coloring, and all these things will be fun. Okay, so like you see on my screen, so CSS learning will be started today. So I have a little bit like a lesson content that I have prepared so that we will cover a little bit like review, so that will be what is CSS, and also adding CSS to our HTML document as a external file, internal, and also the inline CSS element, and what is the different, the different use cases. And also CSS will always have a selecting element in HTML, so that we need to talk about selector and different selector like attribute, class, element, and group selector, and also CSS structure in like a property, CSS property value, so that we need to break it down. And also the other one will be CSS declaration. If you make it like the whole CSS rule, that we can say like a CSS rule set or rule or CSS declaration. And also if you have a 2-3 line CSS a code that you want to combine it, we can do that. So even we call it like a shorthand CSS value. And also the white space, so in CSS we are important like keeping the right white space. If not, it will run in error. So that will be what we're going to cover today. If there's a topic, so you can continue watching the tutorial. And also I want to encourage guys, if you missed it, HTML learning, so there's an ongoing series, and I want to make a big concept so that where we get started, so HTML is a backbone structure fundamental, so that is essential for our web technology. We have this welcome to HTML learning, the project that we have done. So I will continue on it so that we have the same concept that how we have started and then how we're gonna finish it, so that will be CSS will be fun. Okay, so what is CSS? CSS is it stands for Cascading Style Sheet. If you make it acronym, short name is like CSS, so that will be Cascading Style Sheet. And also how important that CSS is, so if you visit to Amazon.com, so even I just bought it, my crucial hard drive. So if you see everything is looking good, neat and clean, so everything is related to CSS. So CSS is helping me, so where the menu at the top, and then also the color, and even I can go to add to cart and buy now, and all these are used with the CSS, making a good layout so that we have a better UI UX experience. So what if we remove the CSS from the web page? So let's say if you're using the Firefox, so you press tab key, the Alt key on your keyboard, so it will pop your menu. Go to view if you're using the Firefox, so page style, and then if you remove the style from the page, so always the style will refer to CSS, so there will be no style if I choose it. So now you can see that HTML is like a basic backbone structure. We have all the picture, element, logo, everything, but it's not really helping much as a user experience. The layout is not really good, so that will be really a bad user experience. So imagine that CSS is really helping to have a better presentation and a better user experience. So that's how important. So if I put it back, go to view, and then if I put it back my basic page style, now you can see that it's a really big changes. So things keep it nice and clean, and then also easy to navigate it. So back to my project guys, it's the same thing in CSS. We do not have much CSS applying to our page in our small little project. But now we're gonna start learning to do that. So to get started, so CSS always attached to HTML, and also we need to link our CSS to our HTML. So we have 3 ways to add the CSS style in our the HTML. So the first one will be adding as an external file, like you see on my screen. So you just type it like a link. If you have one more CSS file, you can just type it link, and then it's gonna pop in Visual Studio Code, and then we have a style sheet, href. So we're gonna look for, let's say you have a style, and then now you can type it style or CSS, but it's the same line. So we have already at the top. So it has to be at the like the head element. I mean, we have already talked about it, you know, so in HTML learning, so we already, when we learn, our head element, I have already discussed, so how we can link as the CSS style in our head element. So that is one way to add CSS style as an external file. You have to build one CSS external file, in your folder or in your server, create one style, the file, and also adding as an external file. And that will be the first one. And the second one is adding as a style element. So that will be adding as a style element. So we have this style element. You type it. It has to be inside the head element too. So that will be adding style element. And then now you can start typing. Let's say we have this H1. We're going to change it color to whatever we say, that will be H1. We will start having a selector and color. So we're gonna say what if we just say red. So now we're gonna have this style adding as an element. So that is a second way. And the last one is we are adding inside the opening tag as a style attribute. So to do that, any element, any text, you can add it like H1, P, BR, nav, so any element, so you can add it. But for me, instance, I will add it in H1 element. What if we add it like a style attribute, and then as a color will be this time, what if we just say blue? So that will be, so that will be adding as a style attribute, and we have three ways. So now we can decide it. So which one is the best way to edit? So we can easily, it's a common sense that we have a form HTML element, index HTML, so the subscriber HTML. We have different HTML files that we need to edit. So imagine that if you go back to your Amazon, so we will have different web pages, different products. So we're going to have 1,000 over HTML file. If you're not using the external CSS file, if you're hard coding, like I said, adding as a style attribute, if you add in index.html, form.html will not apply. You have to go one by one and adding everything. So that will be not very good or very efficient workflow. So the best way to add the CSS is adding as an external style sheet. So that will be like I show you. Create a file in your folder or server, and then we're gonna add at the head element as a link. That will be style sheet and link to your style.css. So that's the best way to do it, guys. So that's to start it. So I will remove all the CSS style element here, and I will remove the CSS style attribute from here. So now we know that we have to go with the external file. So now, as you know that if you haven't opened it yet, so you go to style, and then you're going to open the style.css in your Visual Studio Code in the text editor. And also to get set up, guys, even we discussed it, so we need a Visual Studio Code, we need a browser. So if you're using the Firefox, Microsoft Edge, and Chrome, so you just need it to download. And also Visual Studio Code have this extension called Live Server. So you have to install the Live Server so that whenever you save your HTML file or CSS file that you have updated, it will automatically refresh your browser. You don't have to go and click refresh again. So once I make some changes, let's say I'm going to change the HTML learning to now we are changing to CSS learning. So to do the CSS learning, if I save it now, once you save it, so Live Server will help your content that will refresh automatically in your browser. So that is using the Live Server. So download it, install it. So that's what we need to set up. We have already talked about it in HTML learning as well. If you go back, so you can view it again. Okay, so in style.css, as I said, in my content, So to get started with the CSS, so we need the CSS selectors. So that will be, a starting point. So in CSS selectors, we have a HTML element selector, we have a class selector, we have an ID attribute, you see on the screen. So to do that, what if we just type it a little bit outline to do that way. So like I said, to start coding CSS, or even start typing the CSS rules, so we have a element selector. So that will be any element. In HTML learning, we have a different semantic HTML element. So now what if we start with the element? So that will be element selector. So what if I just say element selector? And the other one will be, now you might think that, if I type element, this is just outline, guys. So I will type it like element. And also the other one will be, I say it like ID. And the other one, so it just type it like ID. So this is not the rule that we have to type it, so just that, like I said, I will just type it ID, it will go back. So what if we just say ID, and so that I can enter, and like I said, we have this class to select it. So different things to do. And also we have a group selector, so that will be different element. So let's say element 1, and we have element 2, so element 2. So that is how we're gonna combine it. So that is forget about the bottom one. So that is how what we have added in HTML learning. So I want to break it down everything so that we can deep dive. So that will be element selector for the first one. So the element selector is a semantic HTML element selection. So whenever you see the header or nav, ul or li, and the whole HTML code, so let's say label, input, all these are the selector, all these are the HTML element. You can select it. So that is what I am saying, like an element. So if let's say I have this part 1 tutorial and part 2 tutorial, I want to change it to blue, for instance. I want to show you a element, a selection. So to do that, these are in my HTML. I said in my a code, I wrote it as H2 element, because if you go back to my article section, so there's a H2 element that I put. So that will be element. Now we decided, so that will be H2 element. So that will be H2. And now, so ID attribute. So ID attributes, so if you go back to my index.html, what is the ID? So ID will be now even in ID article. So now I have this ID attribute. So that will be ID part 2. So to do that in your CSS style, to select the ID, but for teaching purpose, I said an ID, but actually it will start with the hashtag. If you want to select the ID, always start with the hashtag, and then also the ID name, it has to be same. If you say ID part 2, it has to be part 2, part 3, it has to be part 3. You just simply copy from it too, so that will make it the same name, and then so that we can remove the typo error. So that will be, you can paste it. So it has to be start with the hashtag, and that will be part 2. So because we put our ID name as a part 2. And also the other one, I said a class selector. So class is I do not have a class in my HTML right now. So what if we add one class to the back to dot, a button? If you remember, we have this back to dot button, So what if we say a back to dot button? So that will be one class. If you want to add class in HTML, you just type it class, and then you're gonna put any name. So let's say this is a button. I just say what if we just say back to top button? So it's the same thing. So what if we just say that, easier, so button, I will just say button. It will be back to top, so that it will differentiate with the button. So back to dash, back to top. So that will be our class name. So we are selecting class, so that will be back to top class name, and then back to your style.css. Like I said, we have a different selection option, so that will be so adding selecting the back to dot class. But for class in CSS, if you want to select it, so class will always start with the dot or period. So that will be just simply dot or period, so you must put at front, so that is different with the element. We do not need it dot or hashtag or whatever, you just type it like an element name. And for ID, you have to start with the hashtag, and for class, we have to start with the dot or period. So that will be that, we gonna start writing the rule or syntax in CSS. So for grouping, I think the grouping will be, even we can talk about it. Let's say, we have a 2, 3 element. It's the same thing, the H2, you can have it H2, H3. So that is what we mean, like a group selector. I think even we can discuss, even we have at the bottom, we have this one, table, th, dd. So all these are the like a group selector, because we are selecting as a group. So that's how we're gonna I will discuss it later. So now back to my H2. So I have this a little bit visual like CSS rule that we can so I discuss a little bit better, so in selector, like I said, in CSS rule, we start with the selector, so that will be P, or that will be dot with the class, hashtag with the ID, and also we will follow with the curly brace. So we have an opening curly brace here, and we have a closing curly brace, and also we will be have a CSS property. So like you see, the color is one property. We have 100 overs like CSS properties that we can use for our styling. So for instance, so that will be color will be our property, and also it will separate with the column. So we must add column here, and also we have this property value. So red, blue, like a green, all these are the property value, and also it will separate with the semicolon. So that is how we're gonna structure. So that is like a CSS, like a breakdown, guys. If you structure it, CSS, so as you see on my screen, so if you have selected H2 element, so like I said, we will follow with the curly brace, that will be opening and closing, and now we're going to add the CSS property. So that will be, for starting point, the color is more easy to understand. So what if we just say one property color, and like I said, in Visual Studio Code, you can press tab key, so it will automatically add your syntax like a column, semicolon, so all the related thing. If you don't have it, make sure that you have a property name, and then you must follow with the column. That will be property separator, and also the so the property value. So let's say color, I want it like, what if we just say a blue, and also you must end with the semicolon or semicolon. So that will be complete CSS rule. Now we have structure. Now this whole structure, we can say as you can see on my screen, so the whole CSS structure will be declaration or CSS rule set or CSS rule. So whenever we say like a CSS rule or CSS, declaration, a little bit like tongue rolling, so hard to pronounce. So I will say like a CSS rule, so that will be better. So the whole syntax will be CSS rule. So that's the complete CSS rule here. So H2 is done. If you save it, let's say H2. So if you remember, we have this is the H2, we apply, knowledge check, and all these H2. Let's say if I save it, bang, now all the H2s are changed to blue. So that is how CSS is looking for all the H2 elements. So not just one H2 element. So there is like I said, external like linking style sheet is the good point. So once you edit, so it will apply to all the different HTML too. So let's say you open a form. If you run it, the form.html element. So let's say, what if we just go to so that's what we have it in the form. If I save and refresh it, so we have this learn more. So now in learn more, it's the same. So we centralize our the style sheet as an external file. So that is how applying in form.html too. So that's what I mean. It's better to link as an external file. So back to the CSS rule. H2, once you save it, it is complete rule cell, and then now it's gonna apply to everything. So part one, knowledge check, because this is an H2 element, like I said, it will look for all the H2 element in the whole HTML file, and then it will apply our CSS rule or CSS properties to it. So now we got it. That's text I mean like that change. So and then the other thing like a ID selector or ID CSS rule. So to do that, it start with the hashtag and also follow with the, I mean the name must be the same as used in your HTML, and then also I will add curly brace. So the curly brace opening closing now it's the same. I mean like, so I mean the better to like to make it quick, you know. So I will continue with the color so that we can see like what is CSS rule and then what we're gonna apply. So color, and also like I said, column and then semicolon, so that we're gonna add the CSS property value here. So the value will be the same thing like what if we just say red for this one. So now CSS, if I add ID attribute part 2 as a color red, it will look for the part 2 attribute ID in HTML element, HTML file. So it will look all the like ID attribute name as a part 2. So now I have an ID attribute part 2 here. So like I said, in HTML, in the in the web technology, we do not have a much ID. We only have a one ID that has to be unique. So that is also sometimes we will not we will rarely use ID attribute styling in our style sheet. But for teaching purpose, if you want it ID make a styling, so you have to select it with the hashtag, and then the style will look for this ID attribute. Now here we have this part 2, so that will be in this where we have is this one, so that will be ID attribute part 2, and it will apply all the HTML element what we add CSS rule. So that will be color red. If you look at back my browser, now you can see that all the the hashtag part 2 CSS rule is adding red color to applying to all the ID attribute, you know. So because this article ID attribute is wrapping all the way to this way, so it include all the footer, video, and listen audio, and even all these are included inside the attribute. So that's why when I apply my CSS rule to ID attribute, so it just change all the red text in this article. So that's how we're gonna edit this teaching purpose, guys. So you might not, it's not the right concept. We will have a different ID attribute in different elements. So just that, I want to show you what is a different selector in CSS. So that is a second CSS selector. And also, like I said, we have a class selector. So class selector is a very common use, widely used, and that will be most often used. Class is very related and more useful in our styling, so that is more important. So if you went to class, so go to your any HTML element, you can add simply just now I show you in the bottom, I added you just type it class attribute and then put your name. So that is how we build our class in HTML, and then back to your CSS. We will start with the period or dot. Now we can start typing our opening curly brace and closing. And so now we're gonna add the property. So that will be, it's the same. What if we say, this time, what if we just say that, in width. So, so that will be a little bit different. Color is more. So that will be, we have one property called width, and then also the value will be, what if we just say the value 500 pixel. So back to dot button, if you scroll it down, before we apply the CSS, it is just simply just a shot. Now you can see that if I apply 500 pixel, if I save it, bang, now you're gonna see a little bit the height we need it, so that will be height too. So why don't we just say 20 pixel, and then back to dot, and then save it. So what? Sorry guys, so the pixel. So why we are not applying here? So if I save it, and so let me double check. So class equal to back to top, it has to be the same name, so it's correct. Back to top and dash, and then if I save it, oh sorry guys, so I haven't saved it. I added my class, but I haven't saved it. Now you can see that this is how it's gonna building. So that is it's a little bit ugly. So if I remove the width, so this now you can see that it's important. You save your file too, you build a class, and then you go to your style, and then start with the period. So type your class name, if I put it like a width 500 pixel, now you can see that back to top is a now bigger button, and if I click it, it's more efficient, you know, so that will be easy. It will navigate back to top. So that is I mean like the basic selector that we need to learn. So that will be when we talk about it. And also the other thing is group selector. So group selector is the same. So grouping different element in the CSS. I mean like, so we have a HTML element. So this is a good example that we can group it like a li. We can separate with the comma. And also one thing to notice that in grouping, we must add comma. I mean like, so that will be, if without the comma, it will not like I mean like, so the run your CSS. So because it needed like a comma so that we can group it. So that is what we call group selector. And now we can see that label and input are group selecting. So that is how like group selector is doing. So, and also the other things, I mean like universal selector. So for universal selector, universal sign is like you see, I mean in computer, so we have this asterisk. So once you type the asterisk, so that is selecting everything. I mean, it is like universal. And if you start with the curly brace, you can type it, let's say, I mean, let's say, what if we change like a color to like a little bit like purple. If you say purple, if I save it, now universal selector is selecting everything that will not include in our other CSS rule, because the universals will run and like look for all the element that will change to purple. But like CSS is like I mean like its names are like a cascading. It's like a waterfall, you know, so it will be start from the top and then all the way to the bottom. So even if I say like a color to purple, and I have one more CSS rule is controlling the H2 to be blue. So when the browser run the CSS, it will look for asterisk and then universal. But when it find this rendering H2 to blue, so it will maintain all the like the universal status will be like a second priority or overwritten, so that H2 element will apply. And now you can see that like H2s are like a priority compares to universal that was started earlier. So that is how we're gonna like CSS priority. I think I will talk about it in the maybe like a future tutorial about it. So how that the priority is making. So that is a universal selector, guys. So the other thing will be, I mean like the pseudo selector. So pseudo selector is I think it will be good like if we apply it to like I mean like the table content, you know, because we built like a table element. So it's a little bit ugly for now. I just want to show you like what is CSS and then what are the elements that we can select. So pseudo selector is if we apply it to like I mean like the like a table element. Let's say I have a table. I mean like, let's say I want to select it like this causes Photoshop Illustrator. I want to randomly select Photoshop to highlight. So for that, I mean like only we can do even in the table. So I will bring it down. So what I can do is if you start with the colon, so that is always pseudo selector in CSS. So if you see column in your CSS file, so that will be pseudo selector. But like I said, I have like a T body. So because I'm gonna select it Photoshop this the whole row to be like changing like a background. So to do that, I will go back to my like a T body, because the T body is holding everything. T body, and then I will start with the like a T body, and then I'm gonna select it like a TR, because I have this TR element inside the T body. And also I'm gonna select it now like which one I want to do it. So now it comes with the pseudo selector. I mean only like a pseudo will help us to do that. So if I select like a column, and what if I say like pseudo selector will be first child. So if I type it that way, now it's gonna select it the first child in my T body. So if I type it like a selector, what if this time we change it like a background color to a little bit maybe what it like I mean like yellow. So that will be a little bit yellow. If I save it, now you can see that like I said, I mean like, so pseudo selector is a little bit useful in the like in like a table element. If you want to rotate it, repeat it to the next element, so it is the same thing. We're gonna like repeat it with the pseudo selector. Okay, the next one, the selection, or I mean like CSS selector will be, I think we have covered everything. So that will be attribute selector. So if you want to sometimes we have to break it down and then get into the very detailed styling, let's say I have a form. So for instance, I want to change my form text. Sometimes we need it for styling purpose. So to do that at the time, now we have to select using the CSS attribute selection, or we can say a CSS attribute selector. So to do that in your CSS, so what we're gonna do is to select the attribute because we have learned all the a different selection that the element ID, class, and everything, a group selection. But now it's an attribute. It's a little bit different. So what we're gonna do, let's say you are going to select the attribute in import, because in the form I want to select it all the import attribute with the text. So to do that, I will start with the input, and that will be the attribute. So in input we have a different attribute. You see, we have a radio, we have a type text. Let's say I want to select the input attribute a type equal to text. So to do that, so input, and then I can start with the this time will be start with the opening bracket, so that will be square bracket, so input square bracket, and then I'm gonna edit type equal to, it's the same attribute, even you can type it. Sometimes the CSS is helping if you want it, so you can copy it from here. So type equal to text, so I'm gonna attribute selection, so this paste it here, so type equal to text, and then after the square bracket we will start again with the curly brace, so that will be opening and closing. So and then now we're gonna add our rules. So let's say it's make a little bit what if we just say color to be green. So if I say this time it's not an element or whatever, not class, so it's a selecting specific attribute. So now I have this type equal to text. If I save it, so once you save it, now you can see that all the form so with the type equal to text attribute has changed to green. You see all these started with the green. If I type it a create username, if I type it my name is Tay, now it's gonna change to a green. So that's how let's say the and also password. I think password is a different attribute because the type attribute text, so it has to be text. So now first name, I'm gonna type it Tay, it's gonna be green. So that is another CSS selector. I guess so we have so we can talk about it. The selector, it will never end, guys. We have a pseudo selector, we have an end child or whatever, so different screen, different size, different devices. So that will be add media selector, so that will be in future tutorial. So that is how CSS is built. It's a property CSS rule, so we have talked about it. So if you look it back, so that's what we built, a CSS rule with the property value, and also in the content. So what else we have? So that was shorthanded. So shorthand and then white space. So in the what if we go back to our table? So now you see that the shorthand is let's say if you see the border 1 pixel solid black, so there is a one line shorthanded coding. If you want to break it down, we can break it down. Let's say if I make a comment, you can press Ctrl and forward, so /, so that will comment our CSS. So it's the same as HTML commenting. I have discussed, I think, last week. So like I said, we have one line, or we can break it down to 2-3 lines. So to do that, I can just type it let's say border and 1 pixel solid black, so that will be border width. So I can type it a border width will be 1 pixel, so that is 1 pixel, and the other one will be solid. Solid is a border, so that will be border style, and border style will be solid. So if I want to break it down, so I can break it down like that, and then also the black, the color. So do this, so that will be border color. Border color will be, let's say, to make it a little bit different, what if we say blue, so that if I save it, now you can see that. So instead of writing the one shorthand code, we can break it down but we can revert it. I mean, so reverse the coding, you know. If you're writing like a 3 codes, like it will take your time more. It will not be very efficient workflow, and also like coding purpose, we do not do that. So if you combine it in one line, so that will be short-handed. So like you see on my screen. So now if I go back to this line, if I will uncomment it, so control and /. So now you can just type it like a one property, so that will be border. So it is a one property controlling, like property value will be 1 pixel, and then solid blacks. So that is how efficient, like if we use a short-handed code. So that is also in CSS very useful. Even you can see here, so grid template colon repeat 2 1 F, all these are a little bit like a short-handed, like even in the margin padding. So the margin top we can put it like I mean like the short-handed code, you know. So that is what we are saying, like a short-handed. And also the white space. So white space is let's say if you remove white space from the CSS like a property, let's say I have this 1 pixel solid, it's a good example too. If I save it, I'll go back to black. What if I remove the white space from this gap? I mean, now I'm removing. So once you start removing the white space, so it will run into the error, because CSS need a proper white space. So guys, I mean, we cannot like I mean remove the white space. Let's say you have this like I mean like, so the I mean group selector now here. So if I put it like in the TH, so let's say if I put it back, so white space, so to play around, so that will be solid and then black. Now if I save it, it will back to normal. If I remove the like white space and all this here, and also remove a comma, so that will run into an error. I mean like, so it's important to keep it like separate with the comma. I mean, so you can remove it in the group selector like a gap, you know. So that's even if you put it like a 2 3, it's okay. It will run like a CSS rule. But like I said, if you remove it from your CSS property and property value, it will run into an error. I mean, even if you like you cannot remove it, that's more important to do. I mean, you can put it like a 2 3 space, but it's a knowledge guy. I mean, it's a theory, so just that we cover every topic, you know. So make sure that you have one like a space separated, white space we need it. So that will be how important too, so that our syntax is correct and the CSS rule is correct. So that is today's tutorials guide. I think I cover everything. I mean, so we started from what is CSS and then everything included. So, but I mean, like I said, for the styling purpose, I mean, it's really a little bit ugly for now, but I mean, for teaching purpose, so we have learned what is CSS and what is the CSS rule. So thank you for watching, and then I hope you enjoy the tutorial. If you like it, if you learn something, please hit the like button, share it, and then also give us a comment, and I hope to see you in next tutorial.